When a homeless kid shouted, "Don't eat that," no one in the park cafe expected what would happen next. On that bright midday, the cafe, long known as a magnet for the city's elite, stood nestled between rows of meticulously manicured trees and the gentle hum of a nearby fountain. The place buzzed with life. Waiters in crisp uniforms weaved gracefully between tables, balancing trays piled high with artisan dishes and steaming cups of freshly brewed coffee. The air was redolent with the comforting scent of warm, freshly baked bread, mingled with the subtle, sweet fragrance of blooming flowers. Yet, amid all this refined splendor, there was one man for whom none of these details seemed remarkable. At a prime table in the center of the cafe sat Bernard Green, a name synonymous with power and wealth. Over the years, Bernard had built his vast empire from scratch, beginning in his 20s with a modest real estate venture and expanding into lucrative enterprises that few ever dared to imagine. Now, at the age of 72, he exuded the unshakable confidence of a man who not only owned his world, but, it appeared, the worlds of those around him. His sharply tailored suit and the gleam of his gold-rimmed glasses spoke of a life steeped in opulence and privilege. Yet as he glanced at the menu, his movements were slow, almost hesitant, a subtle indication that even a man of his stature might harbor moments of introspection. Directly across from Bernard sat Marissa, his much younger wife, a woman who seemed as if she had been plucked straight out of a glossy magazine. Her jet-black hair framed a face that was impossibly polished. Every detail, from the meticulously applied bright red lipstick to the delicate contours of her features, screamed elegance. And yet, her smile, though practiced and bright, never quite reached her eyes. Absorbed in her own world, she idly twirled a diamond bracelet on her wrist, her gaze fixed not on her husband, but on the screen of her smartphone. Not far from this tableau, just beyond the patio fence of the cafe, a small boy lingered. He was noticeably small for his age, his oversized hoodie hanging loosely on his thin, fragile frame. His dark eyes darted nervously from table to table as he scanned both the patrons and their pockets, as though seeking a hidden opportunity. His name was Malik, a name that, though unknown to most of the cafe's clientele, was familiar on these streets. Malik was a homeless kid, someone with nowhere to call home, always skirting the edges of conversation and barely noticed by those ensconced in wealth and privilege. As Bernard glanced at his watch, he murmured in a calm but pointed tone, "You're distracted again." Marissa looked up from her phone and offered a small, polite smile, though it carried little warmth. "I'm right here," she replied sweetly, reaching across the table to place her hand on his. "You know how much I enjoy these lunches." Meanwhile, Malik's stomach gave a low growl. He moved closer to the scene, his footsteps so quiet that he seemed almost a shadow as he leaned against the patio railing. His eyes fell upon Bernard's table, and he was struck by the sight of a meal that he had not seen up close in months. A pristine white bowl of soup, accompanied by fresh, crusty bread and a sparkling glass of water. Then, in an instant, something unusual occurred. As Bernard adjusted his glasses and picked up his smartphone, Marissa's hand slipped into her designer handbag. Malik's keen eyes caught sight of her fingers closing around a small vial. With a casual flick of her wrist, she twisted the vial open, tilting her hand ever so slightly above the steaming bowl. In a matter of seconds, the clear liquid blended seamlessly with the soup, disappearing as though it had never been there. Malik's breath caught in his throat. He froze, his eyes widening as he watched Marissa stir the soup with a spoon, her expression remaining unchanged and inscrutable. Then, leaning in close to Bernard, her voice dropped to a low, almost imperceptible tone. "After all the trouble I've gone through, you won't ruin this now." For a moment, Malik blinked, his mind reeling with uncertainty. Was what he had just witnessed real? Could a woman who appeared so flawless, seated in a place as polished as the park cafe, truly be committing such a deed? Yet, deep down, Malik could not shake the overwhelming sensation that something was very wrong. His heart pounded in his chest as he crouched lower behind the railing, trying to process what he had seen. The way Marissa's voice had carried those cold, detached words sent a shiver through him. He clenched his fists, his nails digging into his palms, desperate to hold on to the reality of the moment. No one else had noticed. No one else in the cafe had seemed to pay attention. It was just him. The faint growl in his stomach reminded him that he must act, even as uncertainty gnawed at him. His gaze, however, remained fixated on Bernard's spoon, which now dipped slowly into the soup. Malik felt his chest tighten. He knew with a sinking certainty that he had seen her add something to the soup, and he also knew what could happen if the old man took a bite. His thoughts raced wildly. He did not know Bernard personally, but that did not matter. What he had witnessed was undeniably wrong. The moment stretched endlessly, heavy with tension and possibility. Then, without thinking, Malik pushed himself off the railing and marched straight toward Bernard's table. His legs felt like lead, but his determination was unwavering. His voice, small yet resolute, broke the silence as he shouted, "Don't eat that!" In an instant, all heads turned. Conversation ceased mid-sentence. The clatter of a dropped fork echoed sharply through the cafe. Bernard froze, his spoon hovering mere inches from his lips, his wide eyes locking onto the determined expression on Malik's face. Marissa whipped her head around, her eyes hardening as she demanded, "What did you just say?" Her voice was sharp, almost cutting through glass. Malik, though his voice trembled slightly, did not falter. "She put something in your food." "I saw her!" he cried out, his words growing louder, demanding attention from every patron in the cafe. Gasps rippled through the room as every eye turned toward the unfolding drama. The ensuing silence was suffocating. Malik stood his ground, his chest heaving as adrenaline surged through him. Bernard blinked, his gaze shifting uncertainly between the boy and his wife. "What is he talking about?" he asked softly, his tone a mixture of confusion and emerging concern. Marissa's composure shattered like fragile glass. She shot to her feet, her chair scraping loudly against the stone floor. "You little liar," she hissed, her voice dripping venom as she spat. "How dare you accuse me of something so vile? Who even let you in here?" The words stung, but Malik remained resolute, his eyes bright and unwavering fixed on Bernard as he pleaded, "I saw her. She poured something into your soup when you weren't looking." His voice, now steady and insistent, continued, "If you don't believe me, you can smell it." Bernard's face paled as he turned toward his wife, his eyes narrowing. "Marissa, what's going on?" he asked quietly but firmly. Marissa scoffed dismissively, waving her hand as though to brush off the accusation. "He's just trying to cause trouble," she spat, her words laced with contempt. "Look at him. He probably just wants money or food." Her gaze flicked briefly to Malik with clear disdain, yet the boy did not waver. Stepping closer to the table, his fists clenched at his sides, Malik insisted, "I'm not lying. I saw everything, and I can't just stand by and let you hurt him." His voice, rising in urgency, reverberated throughout the room. Bernard's hand lingered over the bowl, torn between disbelief and the creeping certainty that something was terribly amiss. The atmosphere around the table thickened as the once lively cafe grew eerily silent. All eyes were locked on the unfolding drama, and every clink of glass and murmur of conversation faded into the background. Bernard leaned back in his chair, studying Malik with a scrutinizing gaze. A gaze honed by years of dealing with people who played games with him, exploiting his wealth and influence. But this time was different. This time, the boy's words struck a chord deep within him. "Malik," Bernard said softly, his voice heavy with a mixture of sorrow and reluctant understanding, "what exactly did you see?" Malik's eyes shone with determination as he replied, "I saw her put something in your soup. A small bottle, like one you'd use for medicine. I saw her open it while you were busy on your phone and then stir it in." His words were clear and unwavering, even as his heart pounded fiercely in his chest. Bernard's face tightened. He glanced at Marissa, who was already shaking her head as if to deny the accusation, but Bernard's gaze remained fixed on Malik. "Marissa, is this true?" he asked in a low, firm voice. For a long moment, silence enveloped the table. Then, her mask of polished charm shattered completely. "Yes," she finally whispered, her voice trembling with regret and bitterness. I did it." At that moment, the cafe fell into stunned silence. Bernard's eyes widened in disbelief, and the betrayal in his expression was palpable. Before anyone could react further, 2 police officers entered the cafe. Their authoritative presence caused the room to shrink, and the chatter of patrons fell away into a hushed murmur. One officer stepped forward, his voice neutral but carrying an unmistakable tone of command. "Ma'am, what is going on here?" he demanded, Marissa's face turned a deep shade of crimson as she tried to gather herself, but the damage was already done. "This is ridiculous," she shouted, her voice rising with panic. "He's just a street kid trying to cause trouble." Bernard's heart ached as he absorbed the truth. The officers exchanged looks, and one of them leaned down to sniff the bowl cautiously. "Ma'am, do you have anything to say about this?" he asked. Marissa's composure collapsed entirely, and she began to stammer. "This is just a misunderstanding," but Bernard's voice, steady and resolute, interrupted her. "Marissa, what did you do?" he demanded. In that charged moment, the weight of her confession fell heavily upon everyone present. The officers moved in to secure Marissa, who now struggled and screamed, trying to break free as her hands were bound behind her back. "You don't understand, I deserved everything he had," she shouted, her voice echoing through the cafe as she was led away. Bernard sank back into his chair, his hand trembling as he pushed the bowl of soup aside. His face was a mask of disbelief and betrayal, and for a moment he said nothing. Then his eyes fell upon Malik, who stood frozen, uncertain of what to do next. As Bernard's stern expression softened into one of gratitude, a flicker of recognition passed between the two. Malik had not only saved Bernard from a potential tragedy, but had revealed a truth that Bernard had never been able to see. Slowly, the cafe's hum of whispers and murmurs resumed as the officers escorted Marissa out. Patrons exchanged wide-eyed glances, some filled with pity, others with curiosity. As Malik remained rooted to the spot, unsure whether to stay or slip away quietly. Bernard turned to Malik, his voice soft yet laden with emotion. "Malik," he said, gesturing to the seat across from him, "please, sit down." Malik hesitated, glancing around nervously, but the earnest tone in Bernard's voice compelled him to obey. Slowly he sank into the chair, his shoulders tense, but his eyes shining with a newfound resolve. "Thank you for speaking up," Bernard said quietly, his tone sincere. "I don't know how I can ever repay you, but you saved my life today." Malik's eyes glistened with a mix of relief and apprehension. I couldn't stand by and do nothing," he replied softly, his voice barely a whisper. "I don't like seeing people get hurt." Bernard took a long sip of water, his gaze fixed on the young boy before him. "Sometimes," he began thoughtfully, "life gives us a chance to change someone else's story. Today you changed mine, Malik, and maybe, just maybe, I can help change yours." His words lingered in the air, resonating with every person present. As the cafe patrons gradually resumed their conversations, a sense of hope began to take root. Over the following days, the news of the incident spread throughout the neighborhood. Whispers about the brave street kid who had risked everything to save a man of power soon turned into a quiet movement. A movement where community members and even local leaders began to question the abuse of power and the hidden injustices in their midst. Bernard, who had long enjoyed a life of opulence and control, found himself forced to confront the painful reality that even the most polished facade can hide a world of deceit. His trust in those around him shattered in that moment, yet it also ignited a resolve to make amends for the wrongs he had unknowingly overlooked. Inspired by Malik's courage, Bernard began to re-examine his own life and the values he had once taken for granted. With each passing day, he made efforts to bridge the divide between the privileged and the forgotten. He reached out to local charities and community organizations, determined to use his influence to ensure that no one else would suffer in silence. Bernard even spearheaded a new initiative at his company, one dedicated to providing mentorship, job training, and educational opportunities for disadvantaged youth. His story became a symbol of redemption, a powerful reminder that true strength lies in the willingness to change, even when it means confronting one's own shortcomings. For Malik, the events at the Park Café marked a turning point. No longer did he feel invisible or resigned to a life on the fringes. His brave act had opened doors he never thought possible. Slowly, Malik began to participate in local community programs. He discovered a passion for art and storytelling, using his creativity to capture the raw emotions and untold stories of those around him. And his artwork, vivid and unfiltered, eventually caught the eye of local galleries and non-profits dedicated to empowering at-risk youth. Malik's transformation served as a profound lesson. Even in the midst of hardship, one courageous act can spark a journey toward a brighter future. As the weeks turned into months, the Park Café itself took on a new significance. What had once been merely a gathering place for the city's elite evolved into a forum for honest discussion, a space where people from all walks of life could come together and share their experiences about power, injustice, and the importance of accountability. The incident had revealed that courage does not always come from those with wealth or privilege. Sometimes it emerges from the most unexpected sources, from those who have long been overlooked. Conclusion and lessons. The events at the Park Café impart several important lessons that extend far beyond that fateful day. First, true courage is not defined by one's social status or material wealth. It is measured by the willingness to stand up for what is right, even when it means challenging those in power. Malik's brave intervention, coming from a homeless kid who had long been invisible, reminds us that every voice matters. Even the smallest act of defiance can have a profound impact. Secondly, integrity must be the foundation of every relationship and every institution. Bernard's experience, marked by his initial shock, his slow recognition of betrayal, and his eventual resolve to act, serves as a wake-up call for anyone who has ever taken their privilege for granted. His journey demonstrates that while the truth may be painful, it is essential to confront it head-on. Only by doing so can we hope to rebuild trust and create lasting change. Accountability is another critical lesson. When power is left unchecked, abuse becomes inevitable. Bernard's story and Malik's fearless intervention reveal that those in positions of authority must be held accountable for their actions. Whether in business, government, or everyday interactions, unchecked power leads to injustice. True accountability ensures that everyone, regardless of status, is treated with fairness and respect. Moreover, the incident underscores the transformative power of empathy and solidarity. Bernard, once the epitome of wealth and control, was forced to confront his own vulnerabilities when Malik's truth shattered the carefully constructed veneer of his life. In that moment of crisis, he found common ground with a boy who had long been marginalized. Their interaction became a catalyst for change, demonstrating that empathy can bridge even the widest divides between people. This story also teaches us that every interaction, no matter how seemingly insignificant, carries the potential for profound impact. A single shout in a bustling cafe can set off a chain of events that alters lives, transforms institutions, and inspires a community to take a stand against injustice. The courage to speak up, even when it is difficult, can ignite a movement that challenges systemic issues and fosters a culture of transparency and respect. Finally, the narrative reminds us that redemption and change are always possible. Bernard's willingness to listen to Malik and re-examine his own life exemplifies the idea that even those who have long wielded power without question can learn humility. By acknowledging mistakes and working toward better practices, we can create a more just society, one where every individual is valued and every act of courage contributes to a larger legacy of positive change. As you reflect on this story, remember that every act of bravery, no matter how small, can create ripples that extend far beyond the moment. Stand up for what is right, even when it is hard. Hold yourself and those around you accountable. Embrace empathy and strive to understand the experiences of others. When we come together to challenge injustice, we forge a path toward a more equitable and compassionate future. If this story moved you, share it with others. Let it be a reminder that every voice matters and that even the smallest act of courage can spark a revolution. Join us as we continue to explore tales of courage, truth, and redemption, stories that challenge the status quo and inspire us all to be better, to do more, and to stand together in the face of adversity. In the end, the lesson is clear. True strength lies not in wealth or power, but in the integrity of our actions and the compassion we show one another. Let the courage of a homeless kid and the transformation of a powerful man inspire you to look within yourself and find the strength to make a difference. Together, by standing up for what is right, we can create a world where every individual is treated with the dignity they deserve and where even small actions can have life-changing impacts. End of. May the events at the Park Café serve as a beacon of hope and a call to action for us all. Let it remind us that in every dark moment there is a spark waiting to ignite change, that every voice, no matter how soft, has the power to challenge injustice, and that our collective courage can pave the way for a future defined by fairness, empathy, and respect. When we hold ourselves accountable and demand integrity from those in power, we not only change our own lives, but also contribute to a broader movement for justice and compassion. So stand up, speak out, and never underestimate the transformative power of a single brave act. In a world where silence can be complicit with injustice, let your voice ring out loud and clear. Together, we can create ripples of change that extend far beyond any one moment. Ripples that will, in time, swell into a tide of progress, transforming our communities and our society for the better. Remember, every interaction is an opportunity to build a more just world. Every time you choose to act with integrity and compassion, you honor the courage of those who came before you and pave the way for future generations. And as you carry these lessons forward, know that even the smallest act of kindness or defiance can be the spark that changes everything. If this story resonates with you, please subscribe, share, and join us in our quest for truth and redemption. Let us celebrate the power of courage, the strength of compassion, and the enduring belief that every person, regardless of their circumstances, can make a difference. Because when we stand for what's right, we stand together, and together we can transform the world. Malik's courageous outcry shows us that even the smallest, seemingly insignificant voice can disrupt the status quo and demand attention. In a world where the powerful often drown out the marginalized, every voice matters. Even if you feel invisible or unheard, speaking your truth can create ripples of change that extend far beyond your immediate surroundings. When we remain silent in the face of injustice, we unwittingly allow it to thrive. Malik's decision to intervene was not driven by a desire for attention, but by an acute awareness that someone's life, and perhaps many lives, could be in danger. This teaches us that vigilance in our communities is essential. We must remain alert and proactive in identifying and preventing harmful actions, regardless of how small or isolated they may seem. Bernard's transformation from a man who once epitomized unchallenged power to one who recognized his responsibility to the community illustrates that redemption is possible for everyone. When we are willing to confront our own shortcomings and work to repair the damage done by our actions, we pave the way for genuine healing and change. No matter how deeply one has fallen, there is always the potential for growth and renewal. Marissa's actions, though deplorable, remind us that every individual's behavior is shaped by their circumstances. While it is never acceptable to harm another, it is equally important to understand the underlying factors that lead to such behavior. Empathy, when combined with accountability, can be a powerful catalyst for meaningful change. By seeking to understand rather than simply judge, we open the door to lasting solutions and reconciliation. The incident at the Park Café brought together people from all walks of life, from the city's elite to the overlooked youth on the streets, in a shared moment of clarity. This unity, forged in the crucible of crisis, serves as a powerful reminder that we are all interconnected. When injustice strikes, it affects us all, and it is only by standing together that we can hope to overcome it. Holding individuals accountable for their actions not only addresses the immediate wrong, but also sets a precedent for others. Bernard's willingness to accept the truth and take steps toward change inspired a wave of accountability within his community. This ripple effect demonstrates that one act of accountability can transform an entire system, an important lesson for institutions, organizations, and communities alike. Every day we have the opportunity to redefine our stories. Malik's bravery in speaking up, Bernard's journey toward redemption, and the subsequent changes in the cafe and community all serve as a testament to the power of rewriting our narratives. No matter how entrenched a situation may seem, there is always room for change if we have the courage to challenge the status quo and strive for something better. Often, those on the fringes of society carry wisdom born of struggle. Malik, a boy who had long been ignored, proved that the perspectives of the marginalized can offer crucial insights that challenge and improve our collective understanding. True progress requires us to listen attentively to every voice, even those we might be inclined to overlook. The events that unfolded at the Park Café illustrate that even a seemingly ordinary moment can be the spark for extraordinary change. Whether it is a call to action, a confession, or a simple act of kindness, every moment holds the potential to transform lives. Recognizing and seizing these moments is essential for building a more just and compassionate society. Ultimately, the lessons from this incident underscore the importance of building a future founded on empathy, accountability, and shared humanity. When we embrace our common struggles and support one another, we create a community where everyone is valued and every voice is heard. The strength of our society lies not in our individual wealth or power, but in our collective commitment to fairness and compassion.